On today's Apple Daily, Apple launches their privacy webpage listing their own app's privacy policies. Battery swell detection being researched for iPhone. Apple sues former employee over leaks. And iCave answers.
For the latest Apple news, rumors, and leaks, every weekday at 12 UTC, join us in the iCave.
I'm iCaveDave and I simplify Apple so that everything just works for you, and if you want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours every weekday at 12 UTC, like this video, subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell so that you don't miss a thing. Apple has launched their privacy webpage listing their own app's privacy policies. So this is just a quick one that I wanted to touch on. This is basically because Apple is launching their privacy initiative. This is because Apple is launching their app tracking transparency coming in iOS 14.5. Now, some of the websites are now talking about, when might they launch it? Guys, it's clearly going to be around the event on the 23rd, so that's when I would assume they will at least announce it and then potentially launch it the same day or maybe the next day, just to give the servers a little bit of a chance, but that's when it's going to happen. There's too many new features and new bits of software coming for them to just kind of release it out into the ether without mentioning anything, especially with the mask ID and with AirTags tracking. Battery swell detection being researched for iPhone. In a quite interesting little twist here, Apple is researching a way to detect if your battery in the iPhone is swelling. Now that can be almost always a really good indicator that your battery is about to stop working. Possibly catastrophically, but probably not catastrophically, but certainly not something that you want. So there's a number of ways that Apple can actually accomplish this. The most simple, I would guess, would be using little strain gauges on the battery itself, which, as they increase in length, as they would as the battery is swelling up at all, that kind of changes an electric current and can report that quite easily. So that would be probably the easiest way that I would assume if they're looking for physical swelling in the batteries. But I think this is a really interesting thing because if the batteries are allowed to swell up to a large degree, they can crack the phone open, they can damage the screen, they can damage the back plates. So it's not something you want. Swollen battery also just generally not what you want in terms of safety. And Apple sues a former employee over leaks. Simon Lancaster, who worked at Apple for quite some time, was one of the senior guys in materials science and materials research by all accounts, who left Apple a little while back, was very liberal with the information that he found at Apple, according to this report and this court filing that has been filed against him by Apple. So a lot of the rumours that came out around October 2019 and November 2019 were as a result of what Simon was putting out there from the sounds of things, and all of this is allegedly, by the way, just for my own legal protection. But yes, a lot of this information was coming out between October and November 2019 on what was called Project X. Now, there's no clarity on exactly what that might be at the moment, although I'm very sure that the information will come out, but my best guess for something that Apple would find big enough to call Project X may have been Apple Silicon. Now, I can't remember if there were rumours circling at that point. I know there was certainly rumours for years and years that Apple would potentially move over to their ARM architecture chips. I think what has happened with Apple Silicon is a little bit beyond what everyone expected at that point, but yes, this is what happens when someone within Apple decides to try and move these secrets out. Now, a few of the things that Apple pointed out in this filing, I know it kind of feels a bit spoil-sporty for us because it's certainly something that keeps this channel alive a little bit at the moment when there are leaks or at least rumours. We never know if they're actual leaks or not, but one of the things that Apple says is a part of the reason that they have the level of security and secrecy that they do is because there's so many of their employees who are working on things that they can't talk about, they can't tell their families about, and they make quite a lot of sacrifices in order to keep these things to be a surprise for when the events happen. So I very much see it from that point of view, how annoying that would be. There is a little statement here from Apple as well, which says, further, forensic review of the devices that Apple provided to Lancaster for his work at Apple shows that Lancaster and the Correspondent coordinated to pilfer specific documents and product information on Apple. On numerous occasions, the Correspondent had requested Lancaster obtain specific Apple trade secret documents and information. On multiple occasions, Lancaster then sent the Correspondent certain of the requested confidential materials using Apple-owned devices. That was probably a rookie mistake. On other occasions, Lancaster met with the Correspondent in person to provide them with the requested confidential Apple information. Yeah, this was going to someone in the media. Not sure if it was like one of the Apple news sites, or if it was someone bigger like Gizmodo, or if it was like a full-on like New York Times or something like that. Again, all of these guesses, I don't know who it was, but certainly a lot of information came out back then. And I mentioned at the beginning of the show, you should subscribe to the channel and ring the bell. And if you do, you are joining our notification squad. And by joining the notification squad, you should also leave me a comment with that hashtag down in the comments so that I can give you a shout out like this. Eric, Lopez, O and Bab have both joined the notification squad. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. Okay, let's get into some iCave answers. Rob O. Is the M1 efficient and powerful enough to do serious crypto mining? And how is it compared to the Nvidia 3080 or AMD's 6800? Crypto mining in general uses GPU power to kind of crunch through massive amounts of numbers. If you're not 100% up on crypto, neither am I, but as I understand it, the mining that happens is basically doing a lot of maths on your system to update the blockchain ledger. So when transactions happen, the more transactions that happen for a given cryptocurrency, the longer the ledger becomes, because it contains a record of all the transactions that have happened so far, which are locked cryptographically. As the number of transactions increases, that ledger increases in size as well, so that more computation is needed to record the changes to the ledger, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. But that's not the important thing here. The important thing here is that the GPU does a lot of mathematical crunching, and in terms of how the M1s compare to something like a 3080 or 6800, it's nowhere near. It's not designed to be that. It is an integrated graphics chip within the system on a package with 8 cores. Now, what it does compare to pretty closely is the Nvidia GTX 1050 Ti. That's the one that I always cite as being the closest for it. I think it was a couple of hundred points behind that out of 16,000, so I think it's fair to compare. But in terms of how much crypto mining you could do on them, I think it works out to something around about 14 cents per day. Admittedly, they don't use a great deal of power, so that's a bonus. But about 14 cents a day, so it would take you 10 years or so to pay off the system. So probably not a great way to do it. However, when we get the M1X, that may be a different kettle of fish. And when we get the Apple Silicon Mac Pros, that could also be something that changes quite a lot. Next up, Civic Mukherjee asks, iCave answers, if Apple is going to release an iPad Mini Pro, I'd like to know how much the pricing would be. I also don't see why they'd want to call it a Pro. What, according to you, would be the Pro feature of the iPad Mini? Hashtag hit the subscribe button, hashtag make it 5K. So pricing wise, tricky one. It's probably going to be, I would assume it's going to be under the 11-inch iPad Pro, but above the iPad Air. So I would guess we're probably talking about maybe $699. I think it's then $749 or $799 and then $999 for the largest, right? That would be my guess, so it will probably be around about $650 to $700. And then in terms of what makes it Pro, it will be things like ProMotion, it will be improved cameras on the back, it will probably be the new design language. But in terms of the difference, it's mainly about that processor. If you put an A14X chip in there, that's basically a Pro because it's the same in almost all ways as an M1. Of course, if they are going to do it with the magnetic Apple Pencil, they're going to need to make a shorter one too. Another one from Civic Mukherjee, hashtag iCave answers. People are always in the habit of killing the background apps running on our iPhones. To tell you the truth, I've had zero thoughts on not doing so on my iPhone since the very beginning, but I've heard very many people are saying that this is a less efficient process than, say, keeping the recently used apps running in the background and switching back and forth. What, according to you, is the more efficient process? Hashtag hit the subscribe button, hashtag make it 5K. We are pretty close, we're getting there. So killing background apps. Now this has been addressed, I think, by Craig Federighi on stage. It's been addressed by a number of the other kind of software guys and some of the hardware guys at Apple, and it doesn't help. So when an app is suspended during use on an iPad or on an iPhone, it basically completely freezes. It dumps all of the the RAM, all of the stuff that it would be using in your memory, into the storage, so you've got that save state ready to reopen as soon as you need to. Now that means that all you're basically seeing is a JPEG or a PNG file of those screenshots from what it looked like before you went away from that app. So that's when you open up and you can see all of the apps that you've got running, it's literally a screenshot that they've taken. The app is not actually running in the background. And you'll notice this as well because sometimes when you reload apps that are a little bit bigger, they will start right from the beginning again. So if they have like a splash screen, you'll get that instead of just going back into the app where you were. Now, all of this said, closing all of the apps, all that's doing is actually dumping that refresh file, which doesn't live in your RAM anyway, so it's not actually going to be affecting the performance of your system. But it does mean that it has to reload everything from its kind of basic point every time. So a lot of apps will actually take longer to boot if you are doing that. But yeah, even according to Apple themselves, you should not be going through and swiping closed all of your apps. As much as it feels great and they're all out of the way, you're just making your phone take longer to do stuff in the future. Next up, Tech Hyped. iCave answers, are you excited for foldable iPhones coming up? No idea when, but are you going to get one if Apple ever releases a folding phone? So we'll start with the second half of that one. Will I ever get a folding phone? I don't know. I'm not particularly excited by them. And what Apple will do that's different, I don't think it's going to be as much of a open it, close it every time you need to use it kind of situation. Going back to the first part of your question, how excited am I? I'm just not excited at all about the prospect of folding phones. However, when Apple does do it themselves, I am a lot more confident that it's going to be a decent experience, it's going to be good, and it's going to be solid in the first place, and probably from day one, compared to anyone else announcing something like this. Dragons in Genesis podcast asks, do you think future Apple computers could use traditional RAM for memory swap instead of the SSD? This would allow consumer expansion while keeping the low latency benefits of the SoC. Hashtag iCave answers. Yeah, it's interesting because I did actually make a video quite a while ago mentioning that Apple is basically using the SSD within these M1 Macs as just basically a higher level of cache memory. And we said this right from the beginning, but it's because those drives are so quick that that can work. Now, obviously the concern that some people have got, of course, is over the SSD wear, and they're seeing maybe 1% coming up on their thing. Now, these are very blunt instruments that people are using there, but it looks very much like, from all of the numbers that I'm seeing coming out from the other channels, that I think we were about right with 14 years is once they actually hit their drive warranty for how much they can write onto the drive. About 14 years under typical use. I don't see an issue with that particularly, and Apple's not the only people that do swap drive. Windows does it, Linux does it, everyone else does it too. So could they do it? Yes. Are they likely to do it? Really don't think so. I don't think you're going to get anything user upgradable within any of the M1 Macs. And Sharon Roger asks, hi Dave, iCave answers. I have just recently come across your site and really enjoy your content. I'm thinking of getting into more digital software like Final Cut Pro, and I was going to go for a desktop this time. I'm finding I just need a larger screen. Would you go for the iMac 27-inch right now, or wait for the new 24-inch iMac to come out? And recently, I think you said that might be as early as April or May. Thanks so much, and I hope your little ones are doing well. Well, thank you so much. And I've answered this very briefly in the comments section because I didn't want you to make a horrible mistake, but on the topic of getting a 27-inch iMac with Intel right now, stop right there, don't even think about it. Because honestly, I think it's going to be so quick that the Intel Macs are just being kind of disregarded because they're just not going to make any sense in a world where Apple Silicon can run at ridiculous speeds and not really need fans to kick in. And even on the notebooks sip battery life so that it barely uses anything. Now, obviously that's not as important on the desktops, however, the less power that you're drawing, the less heat you're generating, therefore the quicker you can run because you're not also then spending more power to blow fans through and kind of try and get it back to a normal state. So there's a couple of solutions. You can either wait for the new iMacs if you want to get the larger screen, although there are certain rumours that are saying that the larger display size will come later than the smaller one. I don't think I'll buy it, especially if they're both going to run on M1X processors. And future David cutting in here because we lost a bit of audio just there. The other option that you have is to go for what I've done, which is picking up the M1 Mac Mini and then picking up a display for it. You will actually end up with something a bit cheaper than an iMac. It's not as elegant because you won't have the kind of Apple all-in-one kind of display, but the display that I use that sits behind me while we're filming these shows is a 40-inch JVC TV. It's a 4K one, so you can fit so much stuff on the display. It's crazy. Because it's bigger, you can actually run it natively, so you can fit even more on it than you would with, say, a 5K iMac display. So I just wanted to throw that out there. It also works out cheaper, so my setup with the Mac Mini M1 and the TV came in at just under £1,000, I think £950. Bear in mind you will need a keyboard and a mouse or a trackpad to add on to that, but you're still going to be way under what will probably be the starting point for the iMacs. And William Philippe asks, the current second generation AirPods design fits around 75 to 85% of the population. What do you think the third generation will be, and even better fit for more people? Hashtag iCaveAnswers. So that is a really interesting one. So yeah, Johnny Ive came on stage and he did a huge presentation on how they'd measured all of the ears in the world, and they'd kind of created this shape that fit perfectly, and they wanted to make sure that these things would fit as many people as possible without falling out of your ears and without having squishy plastics, squishy rubbers and things like that. In terms of being a better fit than the second generations, and the reason for that is, number one, they're not going to have silicon buds as far as we know and hope, because these things are designed to fit in as many ears as possible, but without making a seal. We don't need them to seal onto the ears. I think that would be my main thing. They're not going to get the silicon rubber seals, which would make them fit certain people better, but not me, so I'm down with it. I do think that the AirPods Pro are a great fit for the people that don't actually fit the normal ones, so, you know, it swings and roundabouts between the two, but I don't think there'll be a worse fit, let's put it that way. So if you've got a question that you want to ask, hashtag iCaveAnswers down in the comments with your question. I love answering them, and I will see you in the next show. Don't forget to join the notification squad and hit like on the video just before you go. Thanks.